morning we're going to talk about restoration and kind of explore how Gen X and millennials are impacting the restoration market. So we're seeing a shift in the market a little bit, and we'll touch on as much as we can with the time that we have this morning. My name is Jeff Farina. I'm ARMO Select Committee member. We've got 4 highly respected, well-educated gentlemen here. You guys can pay me for that later. If you guys want to go down the line and just introduce yourselves.
Jesse Henke, JH Restorations, Windsor, Ontario, Canada. ARMO Select Committee member, just here to help you get good.
Hey guys, I'm Jason Chandler. I'm ARMO Select Committee member, and I'm the marketing director for Autometal Direct out of North Georgia. Nice to be here.
I'm Dave Alcaraz from Dynamic Airflow Tuning in Cypress, California.
And Blake Berge from Moss Motors Limited in Goleta, California, UK, and Paris, but Director of Merchandising and New Product.
All right, thank you guys. So we'll just get right into it because we've only got a select amount of time. So a little history. Everybody's probably aware, but the restoration market has primarily been. I think when we look at it. We look at it as heavily focused on domestic vehicles, anywhere from the 20s and 30s, from the post-war generation on up through the 60s and 70s. But now we're starting to see a little bit of a shift where later model vehicles are coming into play. So you're seeing 80s, 90s, even, was it a 2000 in our booth?
Yep, 2005.
Yeah, 2005, okay. Mercedes, McLaren?
Yep.
Okay.
McLaren SLR.
Yeah. So we're starting to see cars that are in the 2000s because you look at, look at the calendar in 2000 was almost 25 years ago. So that's where we are today. So Gen X is looking at defining people born between 1965 and 1980, and millennials are 1981 to 1996. So we're starting to see those people become, those groups of people become more involved in the restoration industry as enthusiasts, as business owners, employees. As we move forward and we see that shift, we see different vehicles that are looking, coming into focus, needing attention, needing restoration work. What do you guys see as, we can just go down and whoever feels like they have a solid answer can run through this, but what are you seeing as far as, vehicles that are coming into play that don't fit the typical, what you might think of as the typical restoration market of the past?
We see a lot of different stuff, just nature of the business of where we are. We've seen everything from the 30s to, like you're saying, into the 2000s, cars that we're restoring. We did a 2002 Monte Carlo SS. Just because that's the attachment that people have. I think before it was Ford, GM, Chrysler, there was some import going on. We find the younger generation just thought that was cool. They went to high school in a Volkswagen, and they went to in a W-body Lumina. I mean, we have a Lumina at the shop, a 91 Chevy Lumina we're doing work on at the shop. And people are just like, what are you doing? Well, that's what they remember from high school. That's what we're doing, so.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. We primarily focus on American domestic market, but we see a lot of stuff at different shows we go through where you're seeing, late 70s to early 90s Japanese market cars like the, 280Z and 240Z and Datsuns. It's pretty interesting to see those come up and get some light.
Right.
Yeah, I'm more towards the Japanese domestic market, so I see a lot of imports. I think it's kind of a lot of the guys who were doing this in the 80s and 90s, and now they are old enough or they have the financial means, so they're starting to get those old cars again. And when I say old, it sounds funny to me because they were kind of new. So you're talking about 90s cars, and 80s cars. And so they're starting to restore those, and it's like a resto mod a lot of them are doing. So they're doing, if it's a Honda, they're doing an engine swap to a bigger engine. If it's a Toyota, they might do the same engine or an update, and some of the rear-wheel drive stuff, they're gonna either stay with the same engine update it to another Japanese engine, or even sometimes they're small block or LS it. So it's just kind of it's changing in the sense the way they're doing it. It's much more put together, I guess.
Yeah.
Complete. Buy on what?
Right. For Moss, this is our 76th year in business, and we mainly concentrated for years on classic British cars. So Jaguar, MGB, Triumph, providing parts for all those cars, both to shops and to customers for DIY. But back in '94, we got into Mazda Miata, for example, and that's because the DNA kind of matched some of the other cars out there. Inexpensive, drop top roadster that you could get into and enjoy for a decent amount of money. But we're seeing a lot of those cars now, where the original NAs, where people were kind of driving in, it was kind of a college kid's car, and they might go out and do some time attack or racing with it. Now they're looking to restore those cars and bring them back to kind of the original. Take some of the bolt-on parts off and actually fix that dented fender and put a new interior in it and go out and enjoy it and have it look like it rolled off the showroom floor.
So you're seeing more of a mix in, you've got domestic and import vehicles, because much like maybe the baby boomer generation, where these guys are, restoring the cars that they had when they were younger, because now they're in a different place in life. Trying to see the same cycle just with the next generation.
Yeah.
So, okay. All right. As that traditional market becomes more saturated, what do you see in your specific business as a way to grow the business? Just a way to grow the business in general, as far as products or things that you can offer. Is there specific vehicles you see that are hot?
For us, I
General
don't think.
mix.
For us, I think it's a pretty big mix, but it's taking the technology of the older vehicles and looking what they're doing, whether it's pro touring or autocrossing, and then putting it into the next generation of vehicles, upgrading them. Like we built a Mercure last year. It originally started life as a '90s knockoff of the Euro car, and it just grew from there. So we used a lot of the North American hot rod industry to build that. We're seeing that a lot with our builders that have Miatas, like you were mentioning before. They're giving it that modern hot rod flair because they're not as dedicated to any one brand. So you can swap motors, you can swap suspensions, you can put Corvette suspension in a I don't know, a Toyota if you wanted to, because we have the ability to do it. So showing people you can do that and still have fun and keep that car alive.
Right. Yeah, we work with a brand ambassador, and he recently did a LS swap on a Miata, and did the whole suspension swap, and it complements our brand, because a lot of the stuff we focus on and what we're looking at is not necessarily it's more OE focused.
Right.
So it's a direct replacement for what was originally there, and then having that market crossover and keeping relevant is a lot to do with that.
Right.
It's nice to have like the manufacturers, they keep the main body, the main car alive, and then it lets the builders do what they want to do to the cars. Right. So that's what we look to you guys for. And the industry's really picking up pace to make that direction as quick as they can. It's just really hard, where do you focus, because it's went so narrow before, and now it's just broad. It's all over the place.
Yeah,
So,
you really gotta be everywhere.
yeah, you guys really, the Automotive Direct's got to switch gears if you wanted to go, okay, what are you going to build for a Volkswagen Jetta? Or are you going to do it for another pickup truck? Or what are you going to do? So I think that's led by what's pretty popular and hot. Right. But most of the newer cars are still in a lot better shape than the older ones ever used to be.
Right.
I think it's a pretty broad spectrum depending on what you're doing. I think you kind of have to pick, at least from my perspective, you have to pick a genre. Like, what are you going to do with the car? Is it going to be a track car, show car, street car? I live in California, so there's also smog laws. But some guys are going as far as doing body swaps. You take you measure it all out. You take a 86 Supra and you take a 78, 75 Celica, cut the body off of it. You have the chassis sitting there, and then you literally take the body and drop it down the new chassis. So there's everything from that to engine swaps, like I said before. But I think it's so broad now. Before it was really cookie cutter. I think when the cars are newer or when guys are modifying them, they would do a few things here, a few things there. You could kind of call it as it was. But I think now, like I said, it's really broad spectrum. How much metal work are you doing, and how much performance work are you doing? How much suspension are you doing? So you kind of have to, in my opinion, you kind of have to pick a niche. Like, are you gonna do performance like engine speed, driveline, suspension, and gear? Because there's so much information out there. It's kind of hard to be the master of something. You kind of be like the jack of all trades, I guess.
Right.
Well, and you and I were talking before we came up here. It's a different type of restoration for some of the customers today too. They're not looking to. There are those that want to take it back to factory original, but there are a lot of them that want to restore the car to what a performance car looked like for that age. So they're looking for that old Kaminari body kit, or front air dam that they saw back in the day that made them fall in love with the look of the car. And so trying to find some of those old parts where companies have gone away, or molds, tooling has been destroyed, do you go back and redo that again? And who is out there that's going to be able to provide that? And it's a very niche market out there.
Right. So a couple points from this, what do you see, so there's a mix between Restomod and factory restoration, just like there is with the earlier segment of the market. Is it more one way or the other? Is it probably more Restomod type?
I think from like our experience, everybody wants their car, but they want everything you can put in that car. So they want it as modern as you can. Not so much that it's bone stock original anymore. They want some creature comforts, whether it's seating, but they might want that seating to have the same pattern, the same materials in it, so that it looks like it belongs in that car. Or they want a stereo, Bluetooth, so their map can tell them where they're going, because they're not going to roll out a map in there, Right.
So a lot like a guy that might be restoring a 57 Chevy or Chevelle, same type of deal, get some creature comforts, upgrades and things like that.
Okay. Better brakes, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Right. When it comes to smog, Dave, you mentioned it, and the great state of California has some of the strictest laws in the nation.
It does.
As we get into these older vehicles, we see it, there's obviously the technology changes. I know federal smog laws didn't come into place until 66, but you're talking about cars that are 30 years after that.
Right.
What kind of challenges does that present from a builder standpoint?
Well, because truthfully, what is it, 66 and before, it does not have to be smog.
Right.
You don't have to smog a 75, pre-75, but if you get pulled over, you can get reffed. So that being said, there's ways of working around it. I have one friend, he's got before he took his cats off and stuff, I won't say his name, he was making about 700 horsepower on a Stone Supercharged Z, right, with cats. So it was all smog legal. You go there, smog, you plug it in, it runs, it's clean, it's clear. I think the hardest challenge is getting around that. You're building something that's somewhere from 75 to late 90s, 2000s, having to be able to go around it. And now, that being said, I think if you put the time and effort in, I follow, it's kind of off topic because it's a diesel guy, but I follow Banks Engineering, and he does almost everything that's smog legal, right? And he makes great power, and he proved that the keeping a lot of the smog equipment on really doesn't lose that much power for a lot of what you're doing, till you go extreme. And that's a whole nother, then you're stepping into a whole nother level of car though, right? So you go extreme, because you can find, if you're on a pre-2000, you don't have the same catalytic converter restrictions as you do on a 2000 and later, right? And your OBD2 is different. So you can run a little bit bigger catalytic converter that's aftermarket, that's carb approved. There's less smog components on it. So there's a lot of things that you can do to go around it.
Right.
It's just being mindful and knowledgeable. I think that's where your knowledge really has to kick in, is understanding all that.
Yeah, for us, when we're building the cars, whether they're pre-emissions or not, we're trying to make them as best as we can. So we're adding, emission systems, evap systems to cars, and we're working with the suppliers to do that. Because even the guys that are still building a 72 Dodge Dart don't want their garage to smell like gas. We're pumping up and filling up the station that comes with the vent. We're making those changes to those cars as a conscious business decision to say, listen, we know what it's like. I don't want to cruise. My wife will not get in a car that smells like fuel. So we make the cars as good as we can, and that comes with you guys.
And I think a lot of that comes with modern day fuel injection. You can fuel inject something that make it look like a carburetor, like a throttle body, but it's multi-port fuel injection. You have a much cleaner running car, a much better performing car. You don't have to worry about climate change, like weather change, like we talked about. You don't have to worry about, is it winter time, is it summertime? Do I need to change my jets? Do I need to change the tune? These things have barometric pressure sensors. They have manifold absolute pressure sensors. You can do a mass airflow sensor, which actually weighs how much air is coming in. So you have all these things that can make it run way cleaner when you start it in the garage and you're not coughing, running out of it, trying to pull it out in 2 seconds, you know.
And then as a builder or as somebody in the garage, if you talk to other people, you can get that information. So it seems daunting, but it's really not. You ask people the right questions and you'll get there to where you need to be, so.
When we look at parts, you know, there's a wealth of parts available for the domestic market, the import market. That seems like there's a fair amount of parts available for various cars. What does that look like, you know, when it comes to maybe from a builder standpoint when you're building a car, and then from a manufacturer's or retailer standpoint, what does that look like as far as, I guess, two parts question, one for the builders and then for you guys. From a supply standpoint, you know, whether you're sourcing products that are already made or you're looking to manufacture products, how do you guys address that? And is that more, are you focused more on, you know, domestic or import? I think maybe Jason, you and I talked about, you know, you guys are primarily domestic. Blake, obviously you guys are more focused on the British market. What can we say about those?
Well, I can say on the JDM side, a lot of the suppliers have gone back and started mothballing their parts. Like we were doing a 69 Skyline. You can buy the weather stripping, emblems, everything from them for the cars because they've gone back and said we're going to reintroduce this and sell it through a dealer.
Straight from the manufacturer?
Yeah, straight from the manufacturer.
Okay.
Because they realize the heritage in those vehicles that they have.
Right.
BMW started doing it as well.
Are they using old tooling? Are they retooling new stuff? Or
Some of it's new old stock. Like they have warehouses where it's stocked away. They're using the original tooling to do it. Yeah.
wow, okay.
So it's so that when we look at it from the North America side, it's not so much on our shoulders to reproduce what's there. It's making the contacts to get to it so we can offer it. Right.
Right.
And for us, I mean, we get a lot of customers that come up to us at shows, and whether it be on the British side or the Miata side, you know, I'm thinking about buying a car. I was, you know, trying to decide between this one, what parts are available, is there anything I can't get? And some of that part availability is driving the buying decision for the person buying that car, because they really want to have something that they can restore or modify slightly, and they don't want to get into a dead end when they buy something and then there's no parts for it, or the parts are really expensive and it prices it out of their project range. So it's kind of helping them educate themselves too, and then you listen to that, you know, what are the customers asking for? You know, what are they looking for out there? What are they wanting to do with the car? And then you kind of, you know, this is my product plan. This is what I'm going after.
Yeah, we really run into that as well. We're on the ground. We go to a ton of events every year, and people will ask us, hit us on social media, do you have this for this car? And we're not necessarily as lucky as Blake in having the insight of the customer before they buy the car, so they're always looking for pretty obscure stuff. And we take that into account when we're looking at product development, and we view like production numbers, what's out there, what we've seen at shows, are the builders interested in it, the general population industry, are they in it? So kind of weigh a lot of stuff
A
out.
lot of data to track to make sure that you're going to make the right investment with, you know, your tooling and dollars. You know,
Right,
in
yeah,
that
'cause
aspect.
it's a huge investment to, you know, tool up for
I
something.
think that's
obscure.
something a lot of people don't understand is how much it takes money-wise just to make even a single panel.
Right.
You know, I watched a video recently from I think it was one of the Chevy truck guys. They actually took a trip over to Taiwan, and I think it was Rob.
Yeah.
He was in a factory, and you know, they took them through the whole process, and you know, it's pretty impressive. It's pretty informative. You know, but when you talk about the machinery and the money that it takes to make one panel, you got to do your homework so you're not making the wrong decisions.
Yeah, you could be in a quarter panel tooling, $250,000, $500,000.
Right.
Just for one vehicle.
Right.
Little plug for SEMA, if people don't know it already, but you know, post 80 vehicles, SEMA can offer you some, you know, VIO information, vehicles in operation information, where they can pull numbers on what production was out there. You can always look up production numbers, but what cars are still out there on the road. And it's not exact, but it gives you a good idea of where some of the big peaks were of development. So yeah, there's a lot of these on the road, so the chances are that somebody's going to be interested in some parts for this car.
Right.
So, you know, use those resources, you know, from your SEMA membership.
Yeah, we touched on it there earlier about when you have a customer or when you're selecting a car to buy, ask a lot of questions first. Like we're in a sort of the end, like you were saying, you have no control of what your customer buys. We get a lot of phone calls. So I bought this rusted Chevy truck. Now I bought the cheapest one I could, so I keep the restoration cost down. Well, that actually like quadruples the restoration process, right? So if you're out there and you're looking at a car, or you've got a customer that has a car, and look at it with them in detail, or have a conversation. It's hard to catch them before they get to your door, but when they get there, just really talk to them. Like before we left, we had a gentleman that bought an '86 F-150, and the truck is in immaculate shape as far as like structure, but it came from Arizona, so it's just dry rotted. And he's like, "What do you mean? There's $30,000 in trim and paint and everything." I'm like, "You bought a car that sat in the sun." Like, "Yeah, but it's not rusted." Well, that's the expensive part, but then the paint and body and all the trim is now gonna get you too.
So we talked about the newer vehicles and those coming into play and some of the parts, manufacturing wise. If somebody's trying to restore one of these cars and the parts are not available readily, how do you guys address that from a builder standpoint? And
There's just a 3D scanning. We've got 3 of us in the shop are engineers by trade. So it didn't start off needing us at the beginning. 20 years ago, parts were available. Now we're reproducing stuff. We're metal printing parts, we're plastic printing parts. We're getting CNC pieces made for cars that you can't buy parts for anymore. So the technology in the industry is lending it to it. So it can get expensive depending on what you're doing, but in a shop, most things the guys can get done in a day, like bracketry they need for an engine. We've had cast aluminum pieces for old Corvettes you can't buy. We've been reproducing them that way.
Okay.
Same for us. We keep a staff of engineers on board, and we're probably the only one in our side of the industry that does that. 3D scanner, and if you can't find it anymore, a lot of times if it's a popular part that's needed, our goal is always to produce the parts that keep that car on the road, obviously. And that's both for the enjoyment of the customer, and let's face it, if that car doesn't stay on the road, we don't have a customer to buy more parts. So it's somewhat self-serving, but it also serves that customer's need and desire to keep their car going. Yeah. So when those parts go away, if manufacturer closes down, and availability goes, you either step up or possibly that car never gets out on the road again, and you never saw another set of brake shoes for it. So
Right. Okay. So we got these newer vehicles that are coming into play. What does that customer look like? It's obviously the next generation. It's the millennials and that Gen X and millennial, those 2 generations, which are, one of the focuses of our discussion. What does that customer look like for you guys? Is it somebody that is mostly just an enthusiast? Is it somebody that does work on their own and maybe needs to bring it to you as a shop to finish certain things that they're not specialized in?
I think like what we witnessed with the Gen X and the millennials, they have the money and the wherewithal to do it. Some of them don't have the hands-on experience to do the work that they need to do. Some of them have disassembled a car, we do the work, they reassemble a car. It's a really good mix. For the most part, they come to us and drop the car. Just here,
Right.
Take the car, fix the car, I'll work with you. It's not like a pay a check or drop a check kind of thing. We try to keep them as involved as possible, but it's just like anybody. Like if you got some guys know how to work on a truck, some people don't know how to work on the truck. It's really a big full gamut of people that are looking for work done. For the most part, they just want it done the right way. A lot of people don't want to waste time, don't want to waste money or energy. They want to be treated honestly and fairly, and that's it. That's the biggest thing that we recognize in the industry right now.
Did you see a difference in that generation versus maybe some of the previous, baby boomer guys that are more? I think from what I see in my years of doing this, that baby boomer generation, and even into the Gen X generation, is a lot more of a DIY type guy to a certain point.
It has been. Again, it's all on your schooling, your upbringing, and how much time you spend with anything, right?
Right.
The Gen Xers and the baby boomers definitely had more hands-on. The younger generation sees it and maybe doesn't understand exactly what needs to be done because it looks easy on TV, or I watched my dad do it, but I never got involved.
Right.
But there is some skill and talent that we're noticing. But at the end of the day, it just comes down to the same thing all of us: be cost-effective in what you're doing and be open with people and do with the job. But yeah, you're right. There's a skill that's lacking, I think, as we've moved on. So.
Well, I think as those previous generations had things like auto shop and wood shop and things like that, where today we really don't see those in schools today. So people's, as a kid or a teenager growing up, you know, that their only frame of reference might be TV or computer program or whatever they're gonna learn at home from dads or uncles or neighbors.
Well, I mean, even with us, so there's things that we don't know how to do, so we're YouTubing it, we're
Oh,
you're
sure.
looking all over the place. It's as funny as it is, like these people, the kids that spend so much time on YouTube, there's some trashy ways to spend your time online, but there's some really good ways to do it too.
Yeah.
My eldest son is an artist and he learned how to sculpt and draw watching YouTube.
Okay.
So there, it is out there, so that's a skill I can't teach him, just because I'm not interested in it doesn't mean he can't learn it, and that's how he's learned. And that's how the younger guys are learning as well, but they can only take it so far. Maybe the equipment they need to do the whole job they don't have. So we'll do the panel fabrication, we'll do the hard mods, and then give them the car back. And we've seen some beautiful cars come out of shops at home where we've done the hard leg and they put it back together, and it's like a show-stopping vehicle. So
Okay. What about you
We
guys
see some
seeing?
geographic differences too, because again, we sell internationally, so customers in the UK and Europe, they're a little bit more likely to be, willing to get that rat tail file or bend something to make it fit correctly, do a little extra work to it. And American customers, they want it to bolt on. And the first time they have to tweak something, it's like, well, this part isn't right, and I'm going to return it. So it's a difference out there in mentality and ability and what they're used to doing on their cars to get them together.
Right.
And so you got to kind of keep that in mind with who your audience is, not just an age group, but their location. So.
I think that's true. I think there's an age and location difference from what I've seen. I hate to say it because I'm from Southern California, but Southern California kids don't tend to be as much hands-on or try as at least when it comes to this. And you can see the difference from obviously like my dad's a boomer, so I saw that whole boomer generation. I see Gen X somewhere in the early part of a Gen X. And then you see millennials, so like early millennials are different than later millennials, right? So, and then I see the next generation after that, and they're kind of like the car guys who want cars that just run, and then can I just throw a tune in it, and then it's fast, right? So you see all these different ones, and then I see people then of the same age group, depending on where you're from, within the same country. Like if you grew up somewhere where you had to work on your stuff and you weren't rich, or it's just the way things were. Even if you were rich, you just did it, right? So that's different than somebody who grew up more in the city. Like I grew up riding BMX, so I never bought a BMX bicycle. I would build it, right? I'd buy all the parts and put it together. Same with dirt bikes. And so that hands-on, it also depends on what kind of support you have. Your parents don't have. My dad was not a builder, or he's a car guy. But that was not his thing. So, but he supported me all the time. Oh, that's good. Oh, you did a good job. Or, do you know how to do this? So I think it's also that support that they get. But there's also a disconnect, I think, when you get to certain parts regionally and age group.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think, having that support is a huge help because, if you don't have it, then it's just going to be something maybe you push to the side and forget about. But you've got enthusiasm as well. So if you're enthusiastic about it and it's something you're really passionate about, which that's what this whole industry is about, is people that are driven by the passion for the vehicles. So I think that's got to be a key part to it.
Make another plug real quick for anybody out here that you have a business. If there are schools in your area that have, auto programs, automotive repair, restoration, body shops, stuff like that, reach out to them, work with them. I mean, it may help you build a future workforce, person that you can add to your staff, but it also helps build that enthusiasm. So reach out to those, schools in your area. There aren't as many as there used to be, but when there is one, it can be a gem sometimes. And if it's donating, some scrap parts or whatever else to help their program, anything you can do, it helps build enthusiasm for it and enthusiasts for the industry. So.
Well, yeah, we did the same thing. Like we reached out to a lot of the high schools in the area. There's co-op students, and of course the classes are going away, the auto classes and machine shop classes. So we went to the schools and said, hey, we have this to offer because we're looking for a younger generation to take over, younger insights. And we couldn't find it, so we went to the schools. We've now hired 4 of them that are on our staff. And we've got 15 people in the shop, and 4 of them are young people that started off as co-ops. And then you give them an opportunity. We let them, work with another team member after hours, so they're continually learning. And then some of them will say, can I bring my friend's car in? Can I show them how to change brakes? So we do that, and that gets another person involved in it. Now, Do they come in and work for us? No, but now they've gained something from it. So it's as much of a responsibility on us to teach the next generation. We had a conversation just before here where the industry is shaking up and changing. The older guys are getting older, the companies are being bought up or closed down because there isn't the interest. So it's up to the remaining of us to try to help everybody else along the line.
Agreed.
That takes me to one of the next points is, you know, what is that, how does this shift affect the next generation of employees? From a builder, from a manufacturer, from a retailer? There's a certain knowledge set that comes with each one of those areas, you know? You can't just take somebody and plug them in, you know? They gotta be somebody that's enthusiastic typically. They gotta like cars, you know? I got into this as a kid. I knew, you know, I grew up around it, but, you know, I started working in the industry and, God, you know, I thought I knew a lot then. I didn't know anything. You know, how does that affect you, builder, manufacturer, tuner, builder, retailer? You know, what do you guys see down the road?
Well, I mean, for us, a lot of the kids, like we just spoke on, don't really know a lot. So we bring them in and walk them through the shop. We've got 4 different departments. So there's the design, there's the fab, there's paint and body, and then there's assembly. So we kind of get an idea of where they want to be. Some of them want to be mechanics, some of them want to get into auto body, some of them, you know, kind of like techie stuff. So we partner them, you know, with somebody that they're working with every day, but they're still, you know, just like I started, sweeping the floors, emptying the garbages,
Right.
unboxing parts, talking to the customers, like, you know, can you grab somebody a coffee? Not the employees. We just think if a customer comes in and say, hey, can you take care of him for a minute? I got to go do this. Just grab him a coffee, you know, give him a quick tour of the shop. So letting them sort of softly into it until we understand, okay, he's really good with a tool. He can swing a hammer. He can form sheet metal, or she can paint a car. You know, then when we find that, then we sort of fine tune them. In some cases, we've got a short amount of time because they're a co-op for half a year. We're lucky that once we get a co-op, that school doesn't usually have another one that same year, so we keep that co-op student for the year, and then it turns into a part-time job. So as we see them develop, we say, okay, you're going to work here, and we try to shuffle them from department to department to say, okay, you're going to get a little bit of experience here, you're getting a little bit of experience here, but today we really need you back here sweeping the floors. So you start off and you give them the reins to do some screw-ups because we have that ability, but everybody's going to make mistakes, you know, so that's how we've done it to kind of get them involved, and then they find a comfort zone, they get to speak to everybody in the shop, they talk about their life, they talk about what they want, and then we go from there. That's how we all built. Like I grew up building race cars around the corner from my house, but I rode my bike over when I was 7 years old, and I was just picking up parts and drilling out rivets on a car. That's how I started, and then ended up becoming crew chief on 2 of the cars. So.
Well, like for us, on that same light, in a marketing aspect, we really try to highlight influencers that are young guys, young girls that are, like, I'm going to call her out, Riley in the back. She's got a great program. She's got a lot of kids involved in rebuilding carburetors and working with Edelbrock, coming to SEMA and being a spokesperson and highlighting those kind of stories to where younger generation can relate to that.
Right. I think that's important, is having that something to relate to.
Right.
Well, she's been very approachable, her and her father with that car. The crowd that they brought to the unveiling and the people that they were talking to, and that were proud for her and proud to be like, okay, this is cool, I can be involved in this. Right. Great job. Thank you.
I think there's a lot of programs out there that are good, and like any other program, I think when you go to it, it gives you back what you put into it. So if you're a young person that's looking to it and you watch too much YouTube and you just see these people like building these cars, yeah, that's cool, I want to do that. It's those people, what you don't see on that YouTube is all the effort that those people really put into it to get to that level before that. And I think a lot of people, young people, go to these schools and try to get this education and don't realize how much effort there is to get to that level. And I'm not even saying the people that are doing it are at that high of level, because then I look at people who are older than us, like Banks, and that dude's like on a whole nother level. But you look at, you know, when you do this, like I have a friend that works as a teacher, he's an automotive teacher. He has a chassis dyno, an engine dyno, and this is out of high school. And you get certificates for electrical through Snap-on. These things are all brought to him, like he's gotten all these things. I'm like, your students are certified so far into it that if they go to a post-op program, it's gonna take a while for them to get like really interested in what they're doing, because to get through those entry-level programs is gonna be like, yeah, that's easy, because he's done so much with their high school.
Right.
So, but they're out there and they're far and few in between. But you get a setup like that, and the people that are ahead of that education are really into it. Like this school has something for nursing, they have something for that, for automotive. Like they have, I went to do like a curriculum check on his thing and on his setup, and the lady head of the education department for that school, that area district, she broke it down and showed you everything that they do. I mean, unless you're just getting good grades and want to go to a four-year college, there's nothing that you can't do through that high school. There's, I think, 2 high schools in their area. There's nothing that you can't go right into: nursing, automotive, whatever it is. Yeah. So
High school level.
And that's high school level. Yeah.
Is that in California?
Yeah.
Really?
San Gabriel Valley.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, that's impressive.
It really is. Like when I walked in his room, I was like, "How do I get a chocolate?" I want to run design. He's like, "I got a turbo kit for my small block Chevy." He's like, "Can we put it?" I'm like, "I'll have to put on the engine, but I don't run it." Yeah, of course.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
And we're located in Santa Barbara, California, so we have a couple of colleges local too. So for a long time, we've attracted some of our salespeople, from the colleges. They're looking for a part-time job or something they can, work a few days a week. And they would come in and maybe they're a little bit of an enthusiast for cars, maybe they have a Miata, but they come on board and we don't segregate out and say, well, this group only takes calls from Miata customers or British customers. They have to mix. And they get exposed to it, and then next thing you know, somebody went out and bought an MGB GT and they're starting to bolt parts on it. They're learning about that car, or they're looking for, an Austin Healey project they can start doing. So their enthusiasm, they can learn. So my advice is don't pigeonhole anybody. If help them find what their passion is and expose them to as much as you can, be it domestic, foreign. I have an old mentor I used to work with that would say, there's a behind for every seat and a seat for every behind. And if you've ever gone up to Monterey, the Lemons show or something like that, there are guys up there that are just as enthusiastic about restoring their old Dodge Aspen station wagon as the guy, with a Rolls Royce that he's restoring, or a 69 Chevelle. So people have their passions, so help them find it.
Right. So more of a, I think everybody's kind of hit on more of a mentorship kind of mentality behind bringing the next generation in. So.
And something that we've noticed in the industry too is that it's becoming more knowledgeable that bigger shops, or many shops, we have the domestic stuff, but you start talking to builders and they're like, oh yeah, we've got that old Lincoln, we've got that third gen Firebird, and you're kind of, oh, we're not the only ones building front wheel drive cars. They're out there, the other shops are doing it, and we're slowly kind of exposing everybody to it, to bring the other people back in. Because who thought we'd be doing Monte Carlos and Luminas? I mean,
Right.
It's going to be an all-wheel drive Audi one, but but
I think that connecting with somebody who's younger means connecting with them on whatever they think. There's a ton of kids who are like 240SX, and if you can connect with them there, and then show them something over here, and then it just broadens what they think of, right? And then how about this over here? Well, I never thought about that. Well, look at this old car here, and I've shown people like Banks built that Trans Am in '87, right? And he actually went over 300 miles an hour in it on a door slammer. And you look at that and you're like, so what's really comparable to that? Almost 38 years later.
Right.
So you have to, I think, once you can talk to them about what they talk about on their level, then you can expose them and broaden their perspective.
That makes sense. So we talked a little bit about some of the different vehicles. This is from everybody's different perspective. What types of vehicles do you see that are starting to be, do you see any trends right now where vehicles are starting to become more popular on a wider scale? I know you mentioned the Monte Carlo and the Lumina, which
trust me,
it's just a surprise, but I get it. People have a connection to cars. I've seen a lot of different cars that people have restored or modified or just hung on to that you wouldn't think anything of them. Either just a car or, it's a transportation type vehicle. But people have a connection, whether it's a family heirloom or some other emotional attachment to a vehicle that maybe somebody else wouldn't give much of a second look at. But, you know, as we start to look at some of these cars, you know, domestic cars, you got third gen Camaros that are starting to come on popular, G-bodies. You know, I know that we just had our Armo booth at the JCCS in California, so you get a lot of Japanese cars. I wasn't there, but I saw pictures of Datsuns and Nissans, and you know, what do you know, do you guys see anything that looks like a popular trend in any of those newer, say 80s, 90s vehicles, even into the 2000s?
Well, maybe you can help with this one. We're seeing a lot of the small pickup trucks, like the small Rangers, the S10s, S15s, Blazers. So, and it's not that they want mini trucking. I mean, and you can go that way if you want, but they want to like Pro Tour. They look at Ring Brothers cars. They look at the industry. And go, can I do that on a smaller scale? Again, like we're in negotiations right now with a Jimmy, like the small Jimmy,
Yeah.
10 version of it, doing it, and they want to lift it, big tires and fender flares, and they want it to look like the big Jimmys and the big Blazers that are being done right now, because they're so unobtainable right now. But you can, for $1,500, you can buy a rust-free running, driving truck and have some fun with it.
I think that's another appeal to some of these later cars, is they are still more attainable. You know, they're, you know, compared to you know.
Well, they go to Radwood and see what they're doing with those cars and the passion behind those and the slight modifications, and then they go back. It's kind of fun too, like when you're looking at the Luminas or when we got into the Mercure, digging back down in the books and saying, what did they do to these cars that they're going to find neat? That if we just reinvent it or tweak it a little bit, will just appeal to so many more people at these shows.
Sure.
And there's such a huge passion when you go to those shows, when they go to like the JCCX, or if you go to the Radwoods and stuff like that, or Oblivion car shows. They're out there, and the cars are obtainable. So it's not any one car; it's a generation of vehicles, is what it's ended up being right now.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, we see that a lot with, we're developing a ton of stuff for the 88, 98 OBS GM trucks. And we get a lot of the, you know, the younger kids where those are starting to get a little bit out of reach for somebody getting into it. They're asking about the Blazer, the Jimmy, the S10s. And really, that program brings along that generation with
Right.
us.
Right. Okay.
I just saw something which was funny, is a cyclone.
Yeah.
You know, and people don't really realize that there was a cyclone and a typhoon,
Right.
Because they weren't built for such a long time. You know, but that was a great vehicle. I mean, and it had a really good engine there. Obviously, looking back on it, there's a lot of things you do. Duttweiler did a lot of stuff with those engines, but I mean, there's a lot to that car. And there's some funny cars that I always think like, where can I find one of these? Like a Ford Probe. Who would ever do a Ford Probe, right?
Right.
You know, XR4 Ti Mercury, you know, there's these funny cars. But then there's some cars that you look back and you're like, they had a really good engine. I'm like, what was it? Pontiac Sunbird or something? Jim Fuelling built a land speed record on that engine, you know, and that was a 4-cylinder. GM has had some very good 4-cylinder engines with a lot of technology built in them for the time. And I see like a lot of people haven't really touched those, and I can't really understand why. But I mean, as far as like import goes, yeah, I mean, everybody's jumping to the Hondas again, and you know, and all those are skyrocketing. You can't buy a B series Honda engine for like under $5,000.
Really?
And I'm like, I could buy a K series, which makes more power, for $500. But you want me to pay $5,000 for a B series engine? So I think there's a lot of interest that people are going to, and there's some cars that are now starting to get interest because this costs way too much to this. So how about this? I remember these. My friend had one of these. You know, and Ford Probe. You bring that up in a conversation with most people, and they'll be like, "What's that?" You know, 'cause nobody remembers the Ford Probe.
Right.
The Pontiac 6000 all-wheel drive wagon.
Yeah.
So they're not going after the wagons. They want the all-wheel drive. So there was like what 1,200 of them built or something
Yeah.
like that. But they're popular.
And there's like-
it's the fun in finding the
Yeah.
vehicle too, right?
And there's crazy cars, like there's a Tercel wagon that was all-wheel drive, and HKS made a turbo kit for it. But I've never seen anybody build a Tercel all-wheel drive wagon. It's like from 84, 85. You know, there's like all this very niche areas that hasn't been explored yet. And I think a lot of it has to do with people not knowing. Everybody jumps to the kind of the common things.
Right.
You've seen the OEs support some of that now too. I mean, you see, you know, JCCS show when we were there, you know, Nissan's there and they've got their old Datsuns, but they've got the new Nissan, you know, Z car. Honda was out there with they brought cars from their museum that they have at their facility, and they're showing off, you know, some of these old Honda cars and building that enthusiasm because they're relying back on their history and their reputation, but it's also, you know, starting to hey, I remember that Civic Si was really pretty cool, and you could do this to it and that to it, and they were pretty sharp looking, and you can still lay your hands on one now at a decent price. Same with Mazda. They brought stuff out from their museum, and they had their new cars out there, and they had some of their museum pieces out there to kind of build that enthusiasm and that history. And so I think, you're seeing more and more of that where people are, it's drawing people back to their youth a little bit, and they say, I remember, my buddy had one of those in high school, and, I really enjoyed that car. We had a lot of fun in that. I'm going to go build one of those.
Right.
So,
It's nice to see the OEs supporting
yeah.
the restoration aspect of it. Obviously, they're in it to market their brand for, for a reason, but they're still supporting it, so it's nice to see.
I think on that, the OE can't really, the bean counters wouldn't let it happen without you using it as a marketing ploy for your new parts.
Of course.
Because the bean counter is going to take all that market away from it. Bean counters always ruin everything, they say.
No offense to any bean
No
counters. Excuse me. We still have some time, and one of the things we kind of touched on a little bit is technology. As generations come up in the industry and just in life, our technology, our abilities and our levels of technology change. You mentioned 3D scanning, 3D printing, metal printing. How is that affecting your business? And
Well, it's a bit of an offshoot because we can do that for a whole build, or somebody comes in with a part and they need it made, we can help them do that. We can point them in the right direction. It opens so many doors when you're trying to build a car and something doesn't quite fit. You need a bracket. You don't have to wait for a machine shop, because before we're from Windsor, Ontario, so it's machine shops galore, but they're manufactured for the OEs. So it's hard to find that one shop that'll make a small part for you. But now we've got a scanner, we get it scanned, we draw it, and then we send it, online. You get it printed, and it could, maybe Asia, maybe Australia, wherever it gets printed, it gets sent back to us, and the part functions in the car for a fraction of the cost of having to reproduce it from nothing or go find the bracket that doesn't exist.
Sure.
So that's how that's helped out quite a lot. And it also, because you are the shop that can do it, people find you to come and do it. And they go, well, I can't get this engine to fit this car. I can't get this transmission to work properly because I'm missing this bushing or this linkage. Then they said, the people told me you can help out. So it helps you with that customer, but also helps you as far as recognition for the company too. So it doesn't always make you a ton of money. I mean, none of us are in this to make a ton of money really, but you do it because you love doing it. And
Sure.
if you get more people coming in, and as you show them you can do more and more, then it opens the doors for many more vehicles or many more projects.
it has to open up the door for enthusiasts who want to get into the industry that maybe they're not so mechanically savvy, or they don't have a ton of automotive knowledge, but they know how to operate certain programs, they know how to use a computer. They're interested, but that's another foot in the door for
Right.
somebody to.
Like one of the guys that does our design work was never heavily into building cars. He was always on that end of, I can draw it in CAD and I can visualize it, I just don't know how to put it into the car. So he started there, and now he's actually one of our lead fabricators. Because he learned from that, and then we kind of gave him a little more leeway, and he gets the car done, and now he's got something he can be proud of. But you hit it exactly. It takes all kinds of people to build a car. So if you can't swing a hammer, but you're good with books, you can help the accountants. If you're a good communicator, maybe you can be part of a sales team, and you can help be an intermediary between the manufacturers and the builders and the customer. There's so many ways to do it and be involved in the hobby. We all need help with. So
Sure.
Yeah, we've taken some of those situations into account, like Jess saying, where it is hard to find help. And we'll take into account, okay, if we see a lot of builders doing this particular modification, like take for example the square body trucks. We developed a whole bed floor for wider tubs based on the demand from the builders. And it's not necessarily trying to take business away from them, but if they can be focused on something else and we can provide them a solution, so we take that into consideration.
Sure.
like all the mini tub kits they're doing for the
Right.
parish now. So it takes hours and hours and hours to do that yourself.
Right.
Or you can buy the tubs by the floor and you're done. You know what I mean, like not that simple, but yes,
Right.
it takes like a week or two out of the timeline.
Right.
It helps you, helps the customer.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
so
probably
if
had to
can-
have somebody come in and design all that on a probably a CAD program, or.
Yeah, and then we've got 3D scanning and the same technology Jesse's talking about, but then taking it a step further with our manufacturing process, where we're using more lasers and robotic assembly and robotic spot welding to produce a higher quality product.
Okay.
I think it's made it quicker, faster, and more and inexpensive on at least the customer side. I used to do the Honda engine swaps from the D series to the twin cam B series. What did I say, a long time ago? And they weren't making mounts yet. And I used to have to do my own welding. I would cut them out, I would drill the spot weld out. And some of the mounts, I would literally just move over to where it needs to be, and you're there with, finding the right angles, finding the levelers, and you get it in there, and you get it squared up, you tack it, and then, it's kind of there, and then you get enough tack in where you can release the pressure from the hoist, from the cherry picker, and the engine sits there, and then you recheck it, and you're like, okay, it's straight, and then you finish welding it in. Where now they have mounts, and you just go pull out the old engine, put the mounts on the new engine, drop it in, and the guy didn't have to pay me $1,500 to make the mounts.
Right.
And I'd get you're expensive, and I'm like, my engines are straight.
Well, and for us, look around the industry too. There are a lot of people that do different things and have their specializations. So you don't have to do everything yourself all the time. Whether it be using the resources at SEMA Garage or something, if you don't have a 3D scanner, they can do it. If you're a member and you get a discounted rate, they can do 3D printing. But even, I'm not ashamed to say, if I need a simple bracket, to Jesse's point, there used to be a lot of machine shops. In Santa Barbara, we have a ton of aerospace. It's all defense contractors. But a lot of the local machine shops are taking up doing that business. So we can get a job into them, but it might take a few weeks. And so, do I send something out occasionally to send, cut, send? Oh yeah, sure. You need a simple bracket, here's the drawing. They do it for you, and you have, your 100 or 50 of them back in 2 days, and you're done. So look around the industry too, look at those other resources you can use, other companies, what their specializations are, and really do the calculations. Is my time better spent, like you said, doing all that work, doing it myself, or do I go buy this kit or have this person who specializes in that particular operation do it for me, and I get it done for the customer quicker and easier, and it's right.
Right.
I think TransAdapt was one of the first companies to do stuff like
Yeah,
that.
right.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
And one of the companies that we have locally is Welder Series. They do all those brackets and the bushings and rod ends and things like that to kind of cut down on that time. So it helps out with say a control arm that doesn't exist anymore. You cut the end of the control arm on, and you put one of the the rubberized rod ends on there. It works out really well. So there's a lot of companies out there.
Yeah.
All right. I think we've just about covered all of the notes that I had set aside. We got a few minutes left. Should we open up for anybody that might have any questions for these guys?
Sure.
For the shop owners that you're doing full restoration, I specialize in just mechanical repair. I paint, body work, and I'm only 6 months behind. How much of the work in your shop right now would you say is full restorations, full builds versus upgrades? Where you're putting wiring or air conditioning or suspension upgrades and things like that? Because we have so many people that are buying these vehicles and they realize it doesn't have AC in it, or I don't like the steering in it, so with the electronic power steering in them and things like that. How much of that work is in your shop right now?
We've got 28 cars in the shop. 8 of them are full builds. The rest of it's just what you're talking about, whether it's chassis upgrades, engine swaps, brake upgrades, interior upgrades, air conditioning gauges. Yeah, we have, I'd say probably 3/4 of our business is just that, swapping things out and going, modernizing things, taking the car out of storage and getting it back on the road, that kind of stuff.
Do you feel like that there are people that are looking at that, thinking, okay, I want to get into the industry, but I have to be a builder? And I hear that all the time, and I keep telling them, no, learn to fix these cars, learn how to install things, learn how to work on them. You become a really good builder.
Yes, right. And that,
We're missing an opportunity there to get people involved in opening shops and things like that, just to do the mechanical stuff.
yeah, like we're a really big believer in figuring out why something doesn't work, not just, oh, it makes a noise, let's just replace that piece. So if you can, exactly like you said, start learning how to do, small jobs on your own, you gradually become the builder you want to be. Sometimes it happens quickly, sometimes it doesn't. Depends on how you're talented at the beginning, right?
Right.
Sure.
So, I guess my question is, as we're moving in and trying to accept these newer style cars, my shop's historically been pre-war. 10 years ago, we moved into pre-72. We're up to 86 at this point. What we're running into is that these parts are brittle. There's a lot more plastic in these cars. My question is, how do you bid a Fox Body Mustang knowing you're gonna break half the plastic parts. That's
Well, that for us comes back to trying to educate the customer before you get them, you know, before they get that car. To say, listen, we need to find a car, or at least maybe not from the southern US where it's sun-baked. You know, a lot of our cars, the plastic trim in them is still in usually pretty good shape. Our bodies are rotten to hell, but that's the inexpensive part. You can go buy a 6-cylinder Fox body shell and put all the stuff in it. The parts that we can't find, you know, eBay's a big, you know, place for it. Connections in the industry, Natalie Isaac from National Parts Depot, he's been really helpful with the Fox body stuff. Or we get the best part we can, scan it and reprint it. I mean, that sounds simple, but that's what we do, you know.
So are you building the idea of having to replace those parts into your bids at the beginning?
It depends on the car, because sometimes we're just dropped off of the car, and so much like the gentleman with the F-150 truck, you basically have to say, well, we're going to have to put a new interior in your car now, so we're going to have to go find those panels, and those panels are going to be $5,000 more, you know. And so you're up front and you're honest with them up front, and sometimes they understand that, and sometimes they just, okay, that's fine, I'll just go with it, you know. It's on us as builders to try to. You're never going to know what you're going to break all the time, right? But you have to educate the customer coming in the door. So listen, it looks like it's in one piece. We're going to take these screws off, and that, you know, standoff is going to break off. So you've got a couple choices. We can try to fix it, which you may break again, or we're going to have to find another one. It's hard to build in, like we all know you can't quote a whole build up front. You basically have you bring that car in and it's a complete build. And we are doing a Fox body Mustang right now, independent ride tech suspension. And we said, you're going to be starting at $250,000 for this car. And then that's just, you know, if you're okay with that, here's your $100,000 worth of parts to start, and then we go through the car and make a list before we ever get started to try to capture what we can. So at each point, they have a stepping off, you know, okay, I don't really want to take the interior that far. So you just make sure that they understand up front that there's going to be things and problems with those cars. Most of the people are educated enough because they wanted that car for so long, they know the problems. The other people that just don't know because they just want that car, you spend more time with them, but that's usually how we do it.
Any others?
Three.
Ladies first.
Thank you. What's your guys' biggest piece of advice for someone, like a young individual trying to get into the restoration and custom side of things?
Buy a car and build it.
Yeah, I mean, where do your passions lie? Like, you have to look and say, like, what do you want to do? And then find a shop that'll help you learn that skill. You know, so if you want to be body and paint, there's a lot of really good body and paint shops. If you want to learn to fabricate, find a local fabrication shop that'll help you. If it's you want to know the whole thing, then you're going to, again, have to find a shop that'll take you on and teach you. But you're also going to have to understand, we don't know where you're at, so you're going to start off down here and work your way up. And we're fair, and most shops are fair. They recognize that skill, and they'll bring you up as quick as you can. But knock on doors, ask lots of questions, send out emails, Instagram, Facebook, whatever it is. Say, hey, I'm interested in learning this, because if I can't help you, I might send you to somebody that can.
What are you looking to do? Go fast or?
Kind of everything. I obviously want to work my way through it all, but I'm very interested in every single part about restoration under the hood and body work and paint.
Like, do you have a strong point now? Is there, like, you have a skill set? Like, if you looked in your mind and said, okay, I'm really good at this, or I think I'm good at this, you know, that'd be a good place to start. And then talk to that potential employer and say, listen, I'd like to, I think I'm strong here, but I'd like to go up, just be honest. And
Or
that's, go ahead.
Or if you can find some type of a learning institution near you, or if you're willing to go somewhere for a learning institution. And when you show more interest, a lot of times the people, the instructors, teachers, they'll help you further along because you show that kind of drive.
Yeah, and being here is like a great first step. Yeah, so thanks for asking the question.
Yeah. I think we, okay.
A couple in the back.
Go ahead, sir.
So maybe you're getting into restoration, you build a couple of things. How do you kind of get your work out there to bring in more customers in the future? Like you utilize social media, all of that, maybe word of mouth at local like car shows and all of that. Like, hey, I built this car. Do you guys have any suggestions on how to keep building that? Bring in more customers as a young person getting into this?
Well, you've got to look at the individual car you're building. So if it's a new generation car, look for the Radwoods, look for the local car events that you can take that particular car to. And it's hard to take a car here right out of the gate because there's just an explosion of, vehicles to look at. Go to your local events. go to the places where you think, you know, that the customer is going to be. You know, so if you know that you need the money to build that car, take it to an event where you think those people are going to be. Find car clubs that you can say, hey, where's your next Mustang show? Where's your next JDM show? And bring that vehicle there and spend time telling people about that car. Create a story about what you did and what you learned in that car. Sell yourself as much as you sell the car at that event.
Sort of like maybe stay more local to start and then expanding out.
You have to, I mean, to get it, if you're, depends on how quickly you're growing and how good the vehicle is. You know, bringing a car at an entry level here, it's going to be hard to get people to talk to you. So you've got to build the relationships. So if you have suppliers that are in that build, say you've used Moss Motors or you've used AMD, reach out to them and say, hey, I built this vehicle, I'm looking for an event to go to, is there somewhere I could go? And they might not be able to say, hey, we're in your area, but they can say, hey, we can market that for you or help you, point you in the right direction of where you can take it. So,
Yeah, like you mentioned the part suppliers. If you're building a car and you're using our parts, then you can provide good photos of it out at shows. It might end up in our yearly calendar. It might end up on our social media. We're going to help promote that too because you're using our parts.
yeah,
How I was able to build the process of restoring these cars, building them. Maybe not all of them were great restorations, like
Right.
little things customers have done, right?
Yeah.
But social media is a huge one, even if it wasn't a car that I'm working with the company, posting about it, maybe expand your reach. That is what I thought was.
for sure.
I think you had one more in the back corner.
I was just gonna go on her question. I restored a 1971 Chevy truck at Eastern College, taking classes there, and it's been a great process from learning the basics of automotive maintenance, and then taking each individual class at a great class. And then what was great too is I didn't have to. Well, I had my dad's. I returned my dad's truck, so I had his old Craftsman 70s Craftsman toolkit. But like anything else I needed was at the college workshop. So it was awesome because I would go in, students would help me out, instructors would get stuck. The main thing was everything was seized because everything was old and just taking off simple bolts was crazy to me. Have everything we needed there. So I just went from class to class with alignment, suspension to engine. I restored the AC. I started to do some electrical stuff. But the college courses are great because you can take them at night from 7 to 11 or daytime or morning based on your schedule and your work schedule. So, that resource was so great. I hope others, I try to tell others too that if they've got their own cars that they get to do this business. It took me from 2022 till now, and I'm still working on it, but little by little.
Yeah, that's good.
All right, I got the signal from the back here that we need to wrap things up. So thanks everybody for coming in this morning. One last thing before we go. If you guys can take a couple minutes at some point, that QR code will take you to the SEMA app, or if you have the SEMA app on your phone, if you can go and provide a rating for the session, it helps SEMA to track these things and allow us to keep doing this so they can, help provide sessions in the future. So just take a couple minutes and go give that a rating if you would. And other than that, thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. Jesse?
Yeah, I just had one more thing. If you take note of who's here, I don't think anybody would have a problem with you reaching out to our companies or ourselves individually if you have any other questions or need some guidance as well.
Yeah.
By all means. Real quick, if you guys are from LA or Orange County, the real good college is Rio Honda College. They have an outstanding automotive program, and you can actually get a bachelor's degree in automotive.
Excellent. Yeah, I think finding a junior college of some sort or some sort of a program wherever you are is a great first step for anybody looking to get into this.
Sure.
So, yeah. All right. Thanks everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you very much. Thank you.